Welcome, pianists, to the second episode of the Bach Preludes from the Well-Tempered Clavier. Today I want to talk about the E major Prelude, which is just this beautiful little hidden gem that is very, very pedagogically rich. You can use it to really learn a lot of stuff about music in general, but certainly the Bach Preludes. If you don't know it, like I said, it's kind of a hidden gem. It's like this. It's very skipping and lilting. And it's pedagogically rich because it's like a microcosmos of three things that show up quite a lot in Bach. The first one is rhythm. Rhythm shows up in everywhere, but we'll see why it's so, I think, is just by far the most important thing in any music, and certainly the Bach Preludes. We'll talk about harmony. This is the Well-Tempered Clavier after all. And finally, voicing. So these are three things that are in no way unique to this prelude, but I think the prelude showcases these things in such a powerful way. It's a great entry point to the rest of the preludes. So let's dive into it with rhythm. Let's get a feel for the rhythm. Again, this is the A section, the intro. I'll play it in the reprise. In the B section, in the section that really fritzes out, let's go. So this rhythm, this pulse permeates the piece. This bum 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 bum. Let's not intellectualize it. Let's just feel it as listeners, as dancers. In fact, I'm gonna put up a quote over here that I think you should read. Pause the video and read it. It's from a book on Bach dances by Meredith Little and I think it's with a J. I'm so sorry, I forgot her name. And in the preface, they say something they should really burn in your brain. And that is, essentially, you shouldn't intellectualize rhythm too much. Let's jump the gun a little bit and intellectualize this rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Ba, ba, bum. So intellectualizing it as triplets, or it's in 12/8, or it's 4 beats to the measure and every beat is split up into 3. There's a danger of doing that, of essentially only doing that. What you should really be feeling as a listener is you should be attuned to the way that your body feels the rhythm. I don't even like the word rhythm. Rhythm already sounds way too intellectualized to me. I like the word pulse or beat being much more modern. Rhythm, so rhythm is dancing. The pulse is something you should feel. It's something experienced primarily by the body. I think that's an exact quote from this preface. So as a listener, as you're playing this piece, you need to be attuned to the way that this rhythm, this bum 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 bum, what reaction do you have as you hear these bum 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 bum, this rhythm, this pulse, this beat? That is by far the most important thing, I think, in any music. I think is the thing we respond to the most, more than harmony, almost certainly, probably more than melody as well, is the natural reaction that we as humans have when we hear something musical, something rhythmic. But we do also, as players, have to intellectualize it a bit so that we can actually play it. It's possible, especially if you play with other people, to not be able to talk about the piece in a little more rigorous way. So for example, there's 4 beats to the measure. So you could say, hey, in the intro, in the A section on the second beat, play it in this way. So 1 and, or the second beat is here, I don't know, maybe we want to emphasize this G sharp, maybe we want to make a little ornament. And as a player, even if you're not playing with other people, it helps tremendously to keep the piece in your head and really understand it and know it and be able to play it, to intellectualize it and recognize that, okay, we have 4 beats to the measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And furthermore, that every beat is split up into three things. They're not, I guess you could call them triplets. They're actually eighth notes. But it helps tremendously. So as we're intellectualizing this, to be able to say, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Much easier would be 1, E, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and So you always have to be aware of this when you're playing pieces, of the reaction that you as a listener have, because you are a listener even if you're also playing, but also as a player to be able to more rigorously understand what is it about this rhythm that makes it tick. Speaking of what is it about this rhythm, this pulse that makes it tick, just very quick aside, I do feel like Bach is old. It is very old. It's what, 400 years at this point? Something like that. And socially, we've moved in a different direction. I don't think we have as many pieces that are I don't know what, so skipping or lilting. I think it also has to do with the fact that nowadays we don't hear too many pieces counting in 3. Probably going to eat my words on this, but I think that's the case. So many dances, so many pieces by Bach are in time signatures and pulses where you really should be counting in 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh, there's so many. Do, 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 do. This is another jig. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. From the preludes, 1, 2, 3. This is another 4 beat to the measure, but we're dividing every beat into 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Another prelude, the C sharp one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to dig into this a bit more and actually do some research for these videos, but I think part of the reason that it may be hard to really dig these rhythms, these pulses for us as modern listeners is because they're written in 3. But we'll see. In any case, however you play this prelude, if you as a listener can't really dig it, can't really feel how it makes you want to move, makes you want to dance, how the pulse permeates through you, probably shouldn't be playing it. So by far the biggest piece of advice I could give you for all of these preludes is just have a physical, a bodily reaction to the pulse and the rhythm that permeates through these pieces. If you can lock into that and really love it in any way, it will come out. The piece will come out great. I play this piece quite light, as I might have mentioned, but not necessarily. It's just the way that I react to it most naturally. But if you want to get it, I don't know, a little, oof. And make it more, not apocalyptic, but more heavy. Again, that's fine. Whatever makes you react to it and feel it the best is most important. Okay, so that's rhythm. Let's move on to harmony, much less important, voicing as well. But harmony is important. Let's dive into it, because again, harmony is so important to all of these pieces. This is, after all, the Well-Tempered Clavier. So in this piece, in the Prelude, there are two things that Bach does, and why I think it's such a great pedagogical tool. At the beginning, in the harmony, Bach leans into one of the most simple and beautiful pieces of harmony, the major third. What even is harmony? Harmony just means you're playing two notes at the same time, okay, or more. And depending on the notes that you put together, you end up with weird things. This is unlistenable. Well, it's pretty unlistenable. Strange things, beautiful things. That's what harmony is. And in the Western tradition, it's not defined what the Western tradition is. In the music that we in Europe, America, we're used to is very rich in harmony. The sequence of chords that we play plays a lot of importance, which I think is not the case in all cultures of music. I'm not sure, I have to do some research on that. But for us, it is very important. And one thing that we react to very, very strongly is this major third. This major third is gorgeous. In the romantic repertoire, if I put down the pedal, let's play the beginning to Chopin's Nocturne. Let's get that bass a little heavier. Or in Liszt Liebestraum. Same thing. Technically, we're jumping up an interval of, I think it's a major 6, right? But that's not what we respond to. What we really respond to is hearing this G and this E flat together. This is the major third. This is what makes an E flat major triad, major, beautiful, rich. And there's something I think ingrained in us as humans that makes us react to this, I think. I'm not going to dig into the whole overtone series and we'll dig into that a bit later. But for now, I want to mention that this is something that we react to quite strongly, and Bach really leans into it. Example, so right from the beginning, okay, bum, 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 bum. As the melody jumps up to this E, here in the left hand, we have a voice that plays a G sharp. Again, this is the major third if we rearrange it. We react to it so strongly. And on the third beat, another major third. Second beat, third beat. This is an A major. We have an A and a C sharp. So from this beautiful major third to this beautiful major third, and back to the E major third, it really it hits us with these beautiful, beautiful major thirds that sound so rich, so gorgeous. And it does the polar opposite a bit later, where he just has the funkiest harmony, just goes on the fritz. I mean, the weirdest part is at the end here where, this isn't even a chord. I guess it's let's not dig into it. What is that? That is so bizarre. And it has nothing to do with the key that we're in. And that's just one part of fritzing out. I mean, it goes from, we're on this F sharp major, it hits us with this, with like an augmented chord. We kind of start on a regular chord that has nothing to do with the key we're in and move to a diminished seventh, and then this really weird fritzing out. So these are two polar opposites, where at the beginning the harmony in this piece is so gorgeous. If you're not getting goosebumps at least once when you're playing these pieces, you're playing them wrong. I kid, but it's always nice to get that feeling. So it has this polar opposite of just beautiful major thirds to just bizarro harmonies. Now I can't help myself. I really want to talk a bit about why this is the Well-Tempered Clavier. And what even is harmony? I'm just going to give by far the most the biggest overview so that you can maybe start to understand what even is the well-tempered clavier, why it's called that, and maybe why some of these harmonies are nice or weird. So let's dive into it. With examples, we'll do some different tunings here. Imagine like 50,000 years ago, you are doing whatever you do 50,000 years ago, and you come across like a piece of bone. It's a flute. You come across a piece of bone. It's, I don't know, kind of nicely sandpaper. They don't have sandpaper, but whatever. The point is it's in such a way that you can blow into the top of it, and it makes a sound, okay? You don't know why it makes a sound, but it makes a sound. And not just any sound. It makes like a pretty clear sound, just like a human voice would. It doesn't sound like the wind rustling through the leaves or like a lion roaring or stuff like that. It's a very nice, pure sound. And let's say you start playing around with that. For example, I don't know, someone that you know was like, hey, that's pretty cool. Can I also have one of those? And let's say you find another bone, and this one is half as big as the first one you found, right? So the first one you found would play a note, and the other one would play another note. And you notice that those actually sound quite nice together. You can't really describe why they sound nice, but they do sound nice. What you found here is the octave. If jumping the gun a little bit with frequencies and stuff like that, let's just use some numbers. If the first piece of flute of bone was like, I don't know, 4 or whatever your units are, and the second one is 2 or 8, the point is there's a relationship where one thing is twice as big or half as big. What you found there is the octave. Like here on this piano, I'm pretty sure this A vibrates at 440 hertz. If I double that at 880, I have an octave above. I hope I didn't mess up those numbers. So that's the octave. For whatever reason, our brain really tunes into the fact that we're hearing two things that are vibrating like twice, one thing that's vibrating twice as fast as the other, or half as fast. And for complicated neuroscientific reasons, we really lock into that. I think octaves are found in all musical cultures. I think. It might be called octave primacy. Might be wrong, but it's worth looking into. And it makes sense. It's such a simple relationship. I think it is in all musical cultures. In any case, for us, it is very important. This is the octave, okay? Now, I said this is going to be a whirlwind tour. We're going to skip a lot for very complicated historical, mechanical, social reasons. Within this octave, we end up with these pitches, okay, that we've named. C, C sharp, or D flat, so on and so forth. These 12 notes, okay? Again, how we got to these 12 notes, why these 12, why we named them this way, what's the major scale, forget all of that. We'll get to it some other time. The point is you have an octave, and we've split it up into these notes. And over the course of Western history, we have had all kinds of systems for tuning these things. If the octave is simple, because you just double the size of the flute or cut it in half, it doesn't have to be a flute, whatever. It's a piece of string that vibrates. It's like a piece of hide that you've stretched over something, make kind of a drum. All sorts of things that you can make vibrate. Even the human voice vibrates. I mean, you can feel it. If you sing something, ah, you can feel the trachea, the throat part here, vibrating. Because it's a column of air that vibrates in there. Anyways, so besides this octave, which you're going to tune simply, it's like twice as big, it's kind of up to you how you tune these ones over here. I mean, not entirely up to you, but you can play around with the way we tune these things. And before well-tempered tunings and all sorts of other tunings that were around in Bach's time, let me show you what one tuning system was like. All right, temperament, let's go to all right. We're not going to discuss the difference between temperament and tuning. For our purposes, let's say they're all different tuning systems. Okay, in Pythagorean tuning, this already sounds a little different from what we're used to, okay? But it works. Here, let me play the piece. Sounds good. Here we're starting to sound a little off. And indeed, this F sharp over here in Pythagorean tuning starting on C, this F sharp major chord sounds pretty spicy compared to some of the other ones. Ooh, this A major sounds a little spicy, but it doesn't sound that off. I was surprised when I played around with these other tunings that they don't sound really that different. In any case, if you were to use this Pythagorean tuning, it would be hard to play pieces like in the Well-Tempered Clavier where you start off pretty normally, but then you veer off into these just bizarre oh my gosh, this one sounds way off. It would be very hard because the way that we've tuned these notes doesn't allow us to play the same sort of harmonies in all different keys. It's a little complicated, but the point is if I play this major chord, I talked about the major third being so beautiful. Here's a major third. I should be able to play this major third anywhere I want. Like I can start on this note, also a major third. This is a major third. This is a major third. And theoretically, we could try to tune these notes within the octave such that the major third sounds good in all keys. Like whatever note we start on, if we move up an interval of a major third, it should sound nice. That's one example of some sort of tuning system we could do. We could tune it so that other intervals sound very nice and some a little off. The point is, around Bach's time, there's just so many more tuning systems and temperaments that come out that allow people to do this sort of thing. So for example, let's not do mean tone. This Werkmeister is a kind of, I believe it's a well-tempered tuning before Bach's time. It overlapped with Bach, I believe. So we don't know what tuning Bach used. Can you imagine that Bach actually tuned his instruments at home? But it was probably some kind of well-tempered temperament. Sounds good. Even in the weird parts, it sounds good. Still a little off compared to what we're used to in our tuning system, but it works. You can play these pieces that Bach wrote in the Well-Tempered Clavier that move through all sorts of keys, and they all sound quite good because it's a tuning system that allows us to do that. So that's why it's called the Well-Tempered Clavier. Not only could Bach write 24 pieces in all the keys, each individual piece can modulate wherever it wants and it still sounds pretty good. So that's why it's the Well-Tempered Clavier. And this prelude that we're talking about here does just that. It starts normally and then it goes on the fritz. But it sounds good because it's well-tempered. Our tuning system is not well-tempered. It's called equal tone temperament, I think, TET, which allows us even more so to play in all the different keys. Okay, Whirlwind Tour still took a while. That's harmony. Let's talk about the third thing that this piece really exemplifies and that we find in Bach all the time, which is voicing. Okay, really briefly, what do I mean by voices? Because it's not something we're that used to anymore. This is what the right hand does. Okay, it's a melody. It's a single melodic line. I could theoretically sing this if I could sing arpeggios, which I can't. Always sing your scales in your arpeggios. But I could theoretically sing this. Bum 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 bum, ba bum 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 bum. Okay, I can't sing chords. If I play a bunch of notes together, I can't do it. There's throat singing, which lets you play, I believe, a note and one of its overtones, so you can play like two notes at the same time. But I can't do it, and certainly can't play these complex chords. So that's what a voice is. Think of a melody. When people say voice, think of it's a melody, something you could sing. In the same way, the left hand actually has two melodies, okay? So let me play one of the melodies together with the right hand. Sounds good together, right? the melody even sounds good by itself. 1, 2, 3, and in fact, the left hand plays two melodies. There's this other melody, which is it's very simple. Let me play with the right hand. It's a stretch to call it a melody, but it is a melody. It's something I could sing. I could sing this E and really hold it down. Boom, boom, boom. And these voices just combine very, very well. So I could play with the left hand both of those two voices. Here, let me play with different hands first. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so this is what voicing means. This is a piece in three voices. In that, there's essentially three separate melodies going on. You have the right hand playing the main melody, the one that really it would get stuck in our head. And the left hand plays two, let's say, supporting melodies, two more voices. And this piece, I think really, it's a great piece to start learning how to play in multiple voices because it's pretty simple. You don't have voices crossing through the hands. You don't have complicated rhythms. You don't have one hand trying to play two voices at the same time where a lot of notes overlap. I mean, look at this left hand. You have, let's actually pick a different part. So here are my two voices, right? My F sharp and my E. Notice how basically like one voice does something and then the other voice does something. Then one voice does something, then the other voice does something. There's not a lot of overlap, which makes it much easier to keep track in your head of what these voices are doing. So for example, boom, 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 boom. You see? Like the stuff that I played in this part of the piano are one voice, the stuff that I played here is another voice. And they don't overlap very much. So it's much easier to start learning how to play in voices because it's simpler. You can keep them in your head much nicer, much easier, nicey. Okay, that's voicing. I just wanted to briefly mention it. We'll talk more about voicing in some other pieces and why we're not going to play the fugues at all. I think the preludes are enough, but that's enough for the purposes of this prelude. All right, that was a lot. Let's dig into this piece a bit more about practicing it. And I want to actually start with the voicing. How do you play a piece where there are multiple voices? Okay, there is no secret. There is no easy way out. You need to play all combinations of voices, okay? Easy in this piece because the right hand always has one voice and the left hand voices are pretty simple. So you need to play like this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Okay? Yeah, and then the second voice, okay? I'm not going to play the right hand with the second voice. 1 and a 2. Okay? And then you need to play the two voices in the left hand together. Okay? You need to be able to hear every combination of voices. How does the voice in the right hand combine with the lowest voice in the left hand? Okay? How does the voice in the right hand combine with this middle voice? How do the two voices in the left hand combine? You need to be able to hear every melody separately and together. Only after every pair of melodies comes out well, and you can really feel it, only then can you start playing all three together. It is very hard. I am nowhere near good enough at doing this. A great example of this is right here in the beginning. Let's talk about one thing that might be a little difficult. Okay, I promise this was still one take. Because this voice, this lowest voice where we hold on to this E for so long before playing D sharp and E. Because we hold on to that note for so long, it can be easy to forget where we started. So we're now playing this second voice. That D sharp we played there is not part of that second voice. It's part of the first voice. It helps to play with separate hands so you can really remember that, oh, this is one voice with my left hand. Okay? You can't let the voices bleed and combine together. You need to really keep them separate, which can be pretty hard. That's why I think in the left hand, I would strongly suggest playing the voices together with separate hands first, and only then, once you can do that, to start doing it with one hand. Another trick that I use quite a lot for learning with many voices is to isolate one single voice. So for example, let's just keep continuing with the A section. Let's isolate the middle voice, okay? Play the other voices very lightly, but the middle voice loudly. Okay, and then play the the other voice loudly and the other one softly. Keep hearing that voice. Okay, that's it. There's really no trick to it. You just need to memorize each individual voice and start putting them together. And force yourself to stay in the moment and constantly be hearing each one of those melodies and how they interact. So that's it for the voices. The other suggestion I have, because this is not really a very hard piece, there aren't many technical problems with it, is to really lock into that pulse, okay? Count it, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 4, okay? 1 and a 2. Lock into it, but feel the pulse very deeply. And that's going to help with the one section, which is a little more difficult, is where we have these 16th notes, like I didn't like how I played that. It's hard to play 16th notes very fast. But so that the 16th notes don't sound like just a bunch of rushed notes, lock into that pulse. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Okay, don't let the fast 16th notes be the ones that drive that part. Let it be this rhythm, this pulse of. Okay, always lock into the pulse and have that be the most important thing that drives everything else. Okay, that is it for technical problems, how to practice it. Like I said, it's a simple piece, which is why it's so great pedagogically, because there aren't a lot of things you really need to dig into other than keep that pulse in mind, learn how to play with different voices, and that's kind of it. Okay, finally, and least importantly, learning the piece. It's not. Let me mention one thing about rhythm, because in the first episode we learned a piece by memorizing the harmony change. And we're going to do kind of the same thing here, but I want to emphasize something. Harmony is subservient to rhythm, to pulse, and to melody. Even the harmony does help you keep track of where you are in the piece, but what's more important, what the listener responds to more, is the pulse and the melody, stuff that we can sing, okay? So for example, at the beginning, okay, it helps to know you're starting in E major, but much more important than that is knowing that, oh, hey, you know what the melody does? It just climbs up in E major. Boom, 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 boom. That's by far the most important part. I almost wonder if it doesn't even matter which notes we play as long as we keep the shape of the melody, this rise and fall, rise, fall, and rise. As long as we keep the pulse, the rhythm, and the shape of these melodies, the notes themselves matter much less. I think we're stretching it a little bit if we say that, but I do think there's quite a lot of truth to it. So even though we're going to be learning this piece as chords, harmony, like a prerequisite is to actually have memorized in your head, because you like the piece, kind of what's the flow of it? What does the melody do? Even if you can't sing it, at least to hear it in your head. It goes something like bum 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. And if you have that in your head, memorizing which chords it moves through helps you play the piece, but it's not the main thing. The meat and potatoes of it is knowing the rhythm, feeling the rhythm, and knowing the rise and fall of the various voices. With that said, let's dig into it. So how do we learn this piece? It's really not that hard, even the sections that Fritz out. The piece is in ABA form. So we have the A section, which starts very nicely and then fritzes out. Then we have a B section, which is pretty short. Whoop. And then we have the A section again as a reprise and just in a different key. And then we end. There's a small little outro. Okay, the A section. The A section starts very basically with 1-4-5, right? We're in the key of E major. So we got, this is E major. This is A major, right? Take a look, we have the A, the C sharp, the E. This is A major, that's the 4 chord, right? So 1 chord, 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. See, this is just an E major. And, and then, this right here, this is a 5. This is like a B major, okay? So in the key of E, we have E major, A major, E major, B major, E major. 1, 4, 5, okay? If it's not 2, 5, 1, it's 1, 4, 5. So after this introduction, this beautiful introduction of major thirds, A, 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, 5 chord, 1. We hit this A sharp. This is because, just like I mentioned in the first episode, we almost always are going to modulate to the dominant. Again, if you forgot what that is, we're in the key of E major. The dominant is the 5th, right? The chord, the 5 chord. This is a B. So if we're in the key of E major, Bach modulates to the key of B major, which is why we have this A sharp. This A sharp is added. A sharp is, usually we have A natural in the key of E major, but now we have A sharp because we've immediately modulated without much pomp or circumstance to B major. So what we have here, so we've finished the intro. Immediately we have this A sharp, we're in the key of B major. And what we have is an F sharp major chord. F sharp major is the dominant, the 5th in the key of B major. Okay, so we're in the key of B major and we've landed immediately on this F sharp chord, which resolves, obviously the 5 resolves to the 1. Okay. Modulation, this is F sharp. And that's your B major, okay? So F sharp to B major. This is an E major. And now we start fritzing out. Let's just review that again. So after the intro, where we have 1, 4, 5, We've modulated to B, and it just does something very, very trivial. It's from the 5 chord to the 1 chord to the 4 chord to the 5 chord, right? We're back on an F sharp 7. And in this section where it fritzes out, basically we're gonna tease out a resolution from this F sharp, this dominant chord, to the 1 chord, to B major, okay? But it does it in in a funky way. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit harder. Let me actually get the sheet music. I don't like doing this. This is why I even took the sheet music off of the thingamabob over here. But I will be showing a bit of it, I'm pretty sure, in post, and it might help a little bit. You might have this memorized quite well. Okay, so we have over here, we have 4 measures in the section that fritzes out. Okay, the last measure, let's just do that one first, because that last measure is 4-5-1. Okay, we end on E, F sharp, B. Okay. Much easier if you just focus on the left hand. This is E. I mean, we're playing a B, but it's an E chord. This is your F sharp 7, which resolves to B. Okay. Before that, we have the 3 sections that really fritz out. What helped me a lot to memorize this was realizing that we've got our F sharp, the dominant chord, at the beginning of the first 2 measures. And then we've got this G chord. It's more like a G diminished 7. But in the 3rd measure, we start on this weird G, which has nothing to do with the key we're in. And finally, in the 4th measure, we do our resolution. Okay. Let's talk about the 1st measure. The 1st measure is kind of the simplest. We start on an F sharp 7. And I believe this chord over here is, I think it's kind of like a G sharp, or maybe, I mean, this over here is like a G sharp, but then we hit this E, and I'm not sure what we do with that. I mean, maybe it's actually an E major 7, okay? But the point is we start on this F sharp 7, and if you keep in mind the shape, the rise and fall of the melodies, it comes pretty naturally. You go into do do boom 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 boom, and then back to F sharp 7. Okay, so we're on the 2nd measure over here. We're just doing F sharp 7, but then we immediately hit this D. What is this D doing here? Okay, so if you just memorize that, we're gonna do this weird thing where we hit a D note. That is gonna help. The harmony, I guess you would call this an F sharp augmented, so it goes from an F sharp 7 to an F sharp augmented. I'm not really sure, but just remember that in the 2nd measure, you start on F sharp 7, and then you hit this weird chord. In the 4th measure, the left hand moves up from this A sharp to this B, and now we're pretty clearly landed on a B major chord, a B minor chord. F sharp, I guess F sharp augmented to B minor. And then the left hand moves up over here, and we're landed on the 3rd measure of the weird fritzing out section. If you look over here, this is just a G major chord, but pretty instantly, it's pretty clear that this is actually a G diminished 7, right? Okay, G diminished 7, if you remember from the 1st episode, is the diminished 7th chord where it acts kind of like an F sharp 7, right? Because we can take this G, we can move it down to F sharp, and now we have an F sharp 7 chord, which is our dominant that wants to resolve to B. Keep in mind that this whole section is just teasing out a resolution from F sharp 7 to our root, our B major. Okay, so in this 3rd measure, you start on this G, that's actually a G diminished 7, and then F sharp 7, right? This is F sharp 7. And then the last beat, we have this peculiar thing where there's no easy way to memorize this. There's really not. These are not chords. This is not a chord. I guess, I don't know what this would be in context. This looks like an it's written as an A sharp minor. More naturally, we would call this a B flat minor, but again, I don't think it helps to think of these as chords. To memorize this last part, just realize that we've landed here with the left hand, and we have an F sharp and an E, and we're just going to bring these together in the key of B major, okay? These are all notes from B major. This top melody goes down, okay? This bottom melody goes up, and they meet together on this B. Okay? The right hand, while this weird thing happens here, you just have to memorize that you're starting again on this G, just like at the beginning of this measure where we started on G. Move to this G, okay? And now all you need to memorize is that you're gonna move down chromatically. Okay? So that's the weird fritzing out section. Not that hard to memorize. It's really not that hard. Okay, it's hard, but don't get discouraged because you can do it. I believe in you. The B section is quite simple. It's very short. You can think of it as three pieces of 2 measures each. Okay. Think of it as we're in the key. Think of F sharp. Okay, this B section. The key here is an F sharp minor. The reason is, okay, because in the last 2 measures, we're gonna use this F sharp minor as the 2 chord of E major, okay? So we have, let's just do these last 2 measures. This is F sharp minor. This is B, that's a 5 chord. To E major, that's the 1 chord, okay? 2, 5, 1. Quick aside, it's not really a 1 because we have this D natural over here. So this all this flurry of 16th, it's not really an E major scale. It's technically an E mixolydian scale, but forget about that. It's like an E major scale, except we have a D natural instead of D sharp. Okay? E major with a D natural. And the reason is because we're going to use this E major chord to modulate not to modulate. This is the E major chord. It's the 5 of A major. So when we restart the A section, we're in A major. Why are we in A major? Because just like in the beginning, in the first A section, we immediately modulate to the 5th. The 5th of A major is E major. So we immediately land in E major, which is the key of the piece, so that we can end, okay? So to recap, in this B section, the end of it is a 2-5-1 in the key of E. Look at the left hand. F sharp, B, E. All right. The rest of the B section is very similar. Again, think of F sharp, all right? In the first part, we're gonna basically tease out going to the 5 of F sharp, which is C sharp, okay? And we do it in this way. We have like a 2 chord, a G sharp 7. And look at this, what is this? This is like a C sharp, or the diminished 7th version of it, okay? So in this first measure, that's what we have. We have a G sharp minor 7, that's like the 2 chord. The 5 chord, this is your C sharp 7, which resolves to F sharp minor. Again, in the second part, we have the same thing. This, all of this stuff, this is the half diminished chord that acts like a C sharp 7, so that we can resolve to F sharp, okay? F sharp, right? And in the second measures of each of these things, we land on F sharp, and I'll leave it to you to do this. We land on F sharp, and we just move essentially to the C sharp chord. Okay. This is C sharp. And here, this is C sharp, which resolves to F sharp minor. The last thing I want to mention is in the reprise of the A section, Bach does something very cool, which he does quite a lot. So this is a C sharp minor. Instead of resolving to the E, we should be resolving to E. He resolves to C sharp minor. And this is a very nice feeling, which he does a lot. I should have some examples, but I don't off the top of my head from the preludes. It's like a cool little trick. Where are we? And then we go to E major, A major, E major. Okay, let's end this. Thank you for resisting with me so far. I see that on my phone somebody has been calling me quite a lot, so I should probably answer that. And we've been going for, I think, an hour. Let's play the piece, this beautiful, beautiful piece. Get rid of the sheet music.